While lies move quickly, the truth endures. My beloved chosen ones, keep that in mind because what you are about to hear is evidence that perseverance always triumphs against dishonesty. Those who previously proudly stood by their unfounded charges are now terrified, pleading, and rushing for lifelines they vowed never to need. Isn't that poetic? They're the ones who are choking on the same brushstrokes they used to depict you as the villain. Because this is more than simply a tale of their downfall. The chosen ones lean in closer. It is the tangible evidence of your strength, fortitude, and the indisputable significance of being selected. Consider it. Have you ever pondered why falsehoods appear to spread more quickly than the truth? Why you sit in quiet while your enemies applaud? Why your honesty is overshadowed by their whispers? I'll explain why. Although they are rapid, lies are fragile. In the light, they gleam like cheap glass, briefly dazzling, but breaking the soon reality hits them. Here's where you can help. As the selected ones, you were designed for endurance rather than speed. You have been molded to endure the turbulence, the accusations, and the isolation that result from the masses believing false information. And the single thing they never factored for, my darling chosen ones, is perseverance. Picture this situation. The same folks who used to confidently swagger through discussions, calling you a menace, are suddenly frantically pounding on doors. One individual, just one person, is being urged to come forward and declare to the public that they have never attempted to harm anybody. Compassion is not that. That isn't fair. Fear is that. Unadulterated terror. Their house of cards is falling apart. Additionally, they're searching for a way out of the rubble rather than preparing for the fall. They aren't pleading for your liberty. They are pleading to be saved. It's almost humorous. It's like witnessing a hunter fall into his own trap and scream for help as if he had been the victim all along, seeing them falter now. Selected ones. You see the irony, don't you? They are now pleading for the resurrection of the same truth that they buried in the shadows. In the hopes that someone else would bear the confession they're too embarrassed to make themselves, the same lips that once spit venom at your name now pleads for assistance. They want to be saved from exposure, not from injustice. Take a minute to stand with us, chosen ones, before we go any farther. Please press the like button and subscribe to the channel if this truth already resonates with you. Every click, share, and voice enables us to continue producing the sort of material that energizes, inspires, and challenges the myths that are supposed to keep you back. These communications are powered by your support, which also enables us to continue providing you with insightful information that may change your life. Let us stand together, chosen ones, because the more we share the truth, the less space there is for lies. This is the part they didn't anticipate for you. They assumed you would have left by now. Erased, shattered, silenced. They believed that long before the truth had a chance to emerge, the falsehoods would smash you. However, here you are, still standing, still selected, still bearing a truth that they cannot change, despite their frantic appeals. Your survival is their worst fear as their lies become weaker every day you live through. Have you ever pondered why those who were so assured of their allegations suddenly want support? Selected ones? Why do they want confirmation from others that what they formerly said was unquestionable is true? The solution is straightforward. They secretly never trusted their own deceptions. All they could do was hope that everyone else would. And now they're exposed when holes start to show in their tale. Their pleading is evidence that their assurance was never genuine. It was a show. Furthermore, performances are short-lived. Now is the time to remember yourself. Your weapon is endurance. While lies cry out, truth waits. The truth persists while lies run away. And perseverance usually prevails in the end. Their desperation is not the only thing you're seeing right now. It's a covert confession from them. Let this encourage you, chosen ones. Every desperate murmur and desperate effort to find a defender is their way of admitting, we can't hold this anymore. We're drowning in the very story we created. Let it serve as a reminder that packed spaces and loud voices do not equate to power. It originates from the silent confidence that comes from knowing who you are. You persevered despite the stones they tossed at you. You persevered despite their portrayal of you as a monster. You persevere despite their attempts to bury you beneath repetition and rumors. Now, perseverance has changed the course of events. Their falsehoods are no longer a burden on you. They do. Truth has already prevailed, as shown by every restless night, frantic appeal, and last-ditch effort to repair the damage. Don't simply watch them fall apart, then. Take anything away from it. Observe how authority becomes brittle when it is based on fear rather than reality. Recognize that those who used to identify as your opponents are now only frantic performers rushing to get off the stage before the lights go on. And never forget, one thing is evident from the fact that they are pleading, that the worst of them has already been endured by you, my beloved chosen ones. Their unraveling is now the only thing left. So selected ones, lean in. We take off the disguise tonight. Tonight, we reveal the true nature of their terror, because the narrative they created to bury you has turned into the tomb from which they are unable to escape. And stamina, the hammer that breaks it open, is your endurance. And selected ones, I want to take a moment to express my gratitude before we go over everything in detail. It's no coincidence that you're here. It's evidence that you were created for truth that is above the comprehension of the average person. If you're prepared to rise above the clamor, reveal the despair of those who previously attempted to shatter you, and assert the power that comes with being selected, please press the like button, subscribe, and comment with the number 77 so that I know you're on the same journey as us. If this message resonates with you, express your support with a heartfelt thank you. Because if you're really selected, you'll see these same symptoms in your own life, I promise. Now let's get started step by step, because what I'm going to share will make you feel as if you are seeing the real-time development of your own tale. The first is the conscience, which spoke louder than any eyewitness. No testimony can rescue them when their conscience betrays them. The echo in your own breast cannot be silenced, but the crowd can. Lean in, my beloved chosen ones, because what you're going to see is not only a little error or a slip of the tongue. The whole thing is collapsing. The same people who previously portrayed you as a danger are now urging someone else to come forward and testify in your favor. Don't be duped, however. Justice, compassion, or making things right are unrelated to this. Their conscience is rebelling against them, and it is shouting louder than any misinformation they have ever disseminated. Type amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. They're now trying to get rid of that guilt before it consumes them. Consider it. Why beg if they were so sure of their charges? Why seek out another person to defend you? Why not take their own remarks at their value? The solution is straightforward. Selected ones. The falsehoods they said about you were never really believed by them. All they could do was hope that everyone else would. They are too afraid to acknowledge their own wrongdoing. So when the reverberation of their dishonesty becomes too great, they rush for a way out, a bandage, or a witness who can speak the truth out loud. A chosen one's guilty conscience weighs more than shackles. It's an endless sentence, a jail without walls. They believe that layers of repetition and performance might conceal the reality. However, conscience is shrewd. It always manages to get past the gaps. Their gut aches every time your name is said, every time your face appears, and every time you are in a room. Their ribs are pressed up against the sting of dishonesty. They beg because of this, to relieve themselves of the burden they placed on their own shoulders, not to release you. This is where the irony lies. Lies go around like stones. They develop. They proliferate. Like a machine that never stops, they need upkeep. And it takes a lot of energy to sustain them. They must recall their words, who they spoke to, how they misrepresented the facts, and the chronology they made up. It's an ongoing balancing effort, and even the greatest liars make mistakes eventually. The collapse stage is the one they are now in. The upkeep is crushing them, and the falsehoods are too hefty to bear. Therefore, they are pleading with someone else to clean up their mess rather than owning up to their mistakes and confronting the devastation. Type amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. Doesn't it seem absurd to you, chosen ones? The same people who said you were dangerous now ask someone to say you were never harmful. That isn't atonement. Damage control is what it is. That isn't a sign of strength. That is desperation disguised as weakness. They wouldn't need someone else to speak for them now if they ever really believed what they said about you. Their pleading is evidence that their assurance was a front, their charge is a disguise, and their confidence a show. Simply stated, their conscience has turned into a traitor. In the still hours, it murmurs. They lose sleep as a result. It's evident in the way they tremble when you mention your name. It undermines the falsehoods they constructed one by one until the strain causes the whole wall to tremble. And rather than confessing, rather than admitting, yes, we lied, they search for a way out. A witness with the ability to yell what they are unwilling to acknowledge. Let me ask you, chosen ones, for whom do you believe that witness is really testifying? They are you. They don't want your wounds to be healed by the truth. To calm theirs, they want it voiced. They do not want for you to be free to live your life. To prevent the reaction, they wish to be cleansed. Your freedom is not the reason for their pleading. It concerns their ability to survive. And this is the unvarnished reality. Begging is a sign of weakness rather than virtue. The stance of someone who has fallen into their own trap is beggarly. Consider a hunter who, sure of his cunning, lays a trap only to walk into it himself. His confidence breaks down, and he shouts for freedom as soon as he feels the rope tighten around his own ankle. That's what's going on right now. For you, they laid the trap. They themselves fell into it. They now plead with anybody to release them. But perseverance is your strength, selected ones. There was no need for you to plead. You didn't have to hurry. You persevered. You allowed the truth to stand firmly and unassailably while their falsehoods withered under the strain of upkeep. Their conscience went against them as a result, because you experienced truth while others battled to preserve fantasy. And in the end, reality, no matter how subdued, always triumphs over fiction. Let their pleadings serve as a reminder to you. Here, you're not the one in shackles. Indeed, they are. They are suffocating beneath the echo of their own dishonesty, bound to the falsehoods they gave birth to. And they will never be freed from the reality that has already branded them, not even by a witness, a last-ditch appeal, or a frenzied declaration. Remember this, chosen ones. The loudest adversary a liar can ever encounter is a guilty conscience. It is not a sleeper. It doesn't forget. It is not forgiving. Furthermore, no amount of pleading will be able to quiet its voice when it eventually turns traitor. They scurry for that reason. They beg for this reason. They need to be saved, not because you need to protect them. Let's now remove the next layer, because what's about to happen will make it further clearer why their screams are really disguised admissions. Secondly, their opponent is memory, and it is coming back to haunt them. The mirror they can't escape is memory. Words on a page may be removed, but you cannot take away someone's memory of how you made them feel. This is where their terror is most audible, my beloved chosen ones. Collective memory. Their desire for justice is not the reason they are pleading. They dread remembrance, which is why they are pleading. Memory is also cruel. In the moment, rumors may be hurtful. Rumors are brittle, yet they could reverberate for a while in corners and through rooms. Words may become stale. Narratives may change course. Furthermore, information might be forgotten. Energy never goes away. Your character's quiet constancy, the impact you make when you leave a place, and the lingering effects of your presence on people's bones. They are unable to remove it. And for that reason, they are now afraid. Consider it. Selected ones. Wouldn't people have sensed that you were as deadly as they said you were? Wouldn't the words they murmured have been matched by your presence? However, it never did. Even if they didn't always understand you, they couldn't get rid of the feeling that you weren't the monster they had accused you of being. The people who attempted to ruin you are aware that the quiet, unyielding conflict between rumors and truth is now what's coming crashing down on them. They plead for a witness because of this. I have a question for you. Why is memory more painful than rumors? Because gossip is a hollow echo that is loud. A mirror is memory. It captures the reality of life. People eventually forget the clamor of accusations, but they will always remember how you handled them. The acts of generosity, the times you chose to distance yourself rather than strike back, the silent fortitude you maintained while being assaulted. The longer these facts are retained in memory, the more powerful they become. These facts are now more prominent than the smear campaign ever was. The opponent is afraid of it. When individuals begin to believe their own recollection more than someone else's, the game is over. And that's precisely what's taking place. People are using memories rather than words to piece things together. They remember you being there for them. They recall that you left battles that you had a chance to win. They recall that the portrayal of you was inaccurate. Type amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. Lies are killed by that contrast. The bit they fear the most is heard by the chosen ones. When memory flips, it convicts their name in addition to clearing yours. The same audience that first accepted them begins to see them in a new light. They are no longer seen as truth-tellers or guardians. They are seen as manipulators, liars, and those who have deceived others into questioning their preconceived notions. Furthermore, individuals may overlook errors, but they will not overlook being duped into questioning their own intuition. There are wounds from that sort of treachery. They now beg because of this. They plead to shield their reputation from the repercussions of memory, not yours. Because memory is merciless once it is aroused. It refuses to let go. It doesn't get softer. Favorites aren't played. The truth is revealed by memory at its own speed. And when it does, it discredits those who believed they had permanent control over the story. Imagine it this way. In the hopes that no one would notice the flaws, they attempted to apply layer after coat of lies on a wall. However, memory is like water. Slowly but steadily, it seeps through until the paint peels and bubbles, exposing what was underlying all along. They are now at the peeling stage, and the damage is already evident, despite their entreaties for someone else to repaint the wall. Thus, those who have been selected stand tall now. Nothing has to be rewritten. It's not necessary to follow the crowd. You already have the advantage of collective memory. I've already fixed the record. The reality of who you are, the presence you upheld, and the energy you carried. Those things speak louder than all the rumors combined. They panic because of this. They beg because of this. Because they know that transforming reality into fiction will not be forgiven by memory. And now that memory is working against them, their pleading just serves to reaffirm our preconceived notions. The threat was never you. The fact that falsehoods can never survive truth was always shown by you. Thirdly, they don't look for atonement. They are purchasing insurance. They have no desire for atonement. All they're doing is purchasing insurance. Forgiveness is not sought by a guilty heart. It looks for a shield. Hear me clearly, chosen ones. The cries of someone who is sorry are not the desperation you are seeing at this moment. It's the scurry of a terrified person. They have no desire for atonement. They're looking for insurance. Their haste to cleanse your reputation isn't motivated by justice, empathy, or compassion. When they notice the storm clouds building, they take action, and they are aware that their reputations will be destroyed along with the truth when it comes to light. Thus they implore. They scurry. Redemption, my dear chosen ones, is expensive. It requires humility. It requires someone to stand in the open and confess, I lied. They seek for anybody who can declare, you never tried to hurt anyone. Not to honor you, but to cushion their own fall. I attempted to shatter you. I fueled the fire against you, and I was wrong. Redemption doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't come with spin. It doesn't come with an escape hatch. But that's exactly why they don't want it. Because true redemption would mean they accept the full weight of their betrayal. And that's a load they're too cowardly to carry. Insurance, on the other hand, lets them play the game of appearances. It lets them twist the truth just enough to protect their names while never truly admitting the depth of what they did to you. Think about it, chosen ones. If they cared about you, wouldn't they have come forward long ago? Wouldn't they have stepped in before the damage was done? Before the lies spread like wildfire? Of course, but they didn't. They only act now because the walls are closing in. They're not moved by love. They're moved by calculation. This is not conscience. It's strategy. Their begging is nothing more than survival instinct disguised as concern. And here's the danger. Outsiders might look at this and think, wow, maybe they've changed. Maybe they finally see the truth. But don't be fooled. This is manipulation, pure and simple. By begging someone else to speak on your behalf, they're still pulling strings. They're still controlling how the truth surfaces, who says it, and when it's said. That's not redemption. It's stage management. They want to script the ending so it protects them from being exposed as the very architects of the smear. Let's get real, chosen ones. If they can convince the crowd that they were just misled or confused, then they escaped the fire they lit. They can spin the narrative. We weren't the villains. We were simply caught up in the wrong story. That's insurance. That's leverage. That's not repentance. That's preservation of reputation at all costs. Doesn't it strike you as ironic? When they thought they were untouchable, they had no problem throwing stones at you. But the moment accountability knocks on their door, they beg for mercy. Not from you, but from history, from memory, from the judgment of others. And the way they beg isn't even honest. It's strategic. They aren't trying to heal you. They're trying to heal the image they see in the mirror. And let me remind you, chosen ones, this scramble is proof of one undeniable fact. They know exactly what they did. If they were innocent, if they truly believed their accusations, they'd stand tall in their lies until the very end. But they don't. They panic. They plead. They try to buy insurance policies against the truth that's already breathing down their necks. That insurance is their only way to survive the fallout they know is coming. So don't be swayed by the theatrics of humility. Don't mistake begging for repentance. Begging is still control. Begging is still manipulation. And begging is still about them, not you. The sooner you see that, the clearer it becomes. They're not clearing your name to honor you. They're clearing it to protect themselves from the rod of exposure. Chosen ones take this as fuel. Their scramble proves you've already outlasted their lies. Their panic proves that truth has already gained the upper hand. And their insurance plan is the clearest confession yet. They know their house of falsehood is burning. And all they can do now is beg for a fireproof alibi. So let their desperation remind you you were never the one on trial here. They were, and no insurance policy can cover the cost of their betrayal. Number 4, lies burn fast, but reality refuses to die. Lies run out of breath, but reality never stops breathing. A rumor can circle the globe, but it collapses the moment it collides with reality. Chosen ones, lean in. For years, they treated their lies about you like a brand launch. They packaged it, marketed it, and pushed it into every corner they could reach. They whispered it at tables, nudged it into conversations, repeated it until repetition dulled people's skepticism. They believed that if they kept the sound of their story loud enough long enough, people would forget the quiet consistency of who you actually are. That's the gamble of a smear campaign. You count on noise to smother truth. But reality, chosen ones, is stubborn. Reality doesn't fade just because someone drowns it in rumor. Reality shows up in small, repeatable moments. It lingers in the memory of the way you walked away instead of striking back. It clings to the ordinary kindness you gave without asking for credit. It sits heavy in the atmosphere you carried, an atmosphere that never matched the lies. That's why their lies couldn't outlive your reality. Because reality doesn't need an audience to survive. It doesn't need press releases, marketing campaigns, or a crowd chanting its name. All it needs is to be true. And every true action you lived, every consistent pattern you embodied became a stone stacked against the paper-thin walls of their fabrication. Over time, chosen ones, those stones grew into a mountain. And now that mountain presses against their lies until the paper tears. Think about it. If their story was solid, why does one single witness terrify them so much? Why are they begging for someone to declare? You never try to hurt anyone. It's because deep down they know the truth already lives inside people's bones. People felt it in their own experiences with you. The mismatch between what they were told and what they lived is impossible to ignore forever. And that's the terror for your enemies. They can't erase what others already remember. Imagine this. For years, they spun their story like a spider weaving a web. It looked convincing at first, strands crossing over strands, shiny in the light. But webs are fragile. One consistent push, one gust of reality, and the whole thing collapses. That gust is happening now. The reality of your character, your endurance, your consistency, your refusal to be what they painted is shredding the web they wove. And here's the beauty of it. Your truth didn't even need to shout. It simply outlasted the noise. Chosen ones, this is your power. Lies are built for speed. They sprint, they flash, they burn bright. But reality is built for endurance. It doesn't sprint. It walks. It shows up day after day, stacking weight until no amount of fabrication can hold it back. That's why they're panicking now. They never accounted for the slow accumulation of witnesses. The quiet people who saw the real you. The moments of kindness. The times you chose peace over retaliation. Each memory is a witness they can't silence. Each recollection is a piece of evidence that their lie was a construction, not a conviction. And now, in their desperation, they beg for someone else to soften the blow. They scramble for a delegate, someone to confess on their behalf, because admitting it themselves would expose the entire architecture of their deceit. But that scramble is the confession. Their panic is the proof. They're not fighting to prove they were right. They're fighting to survive the weight of being wrong. Chosen ones, let me put it plain. Your reality was never fragile. It never needed spin. It never needed performance. It only needed time. And time is the one currency liars always miscalculate. They believed repetition could outlast truth. They believed forgetfulness would shield them. But the math betrayed them. Because you can only deceive a community for so long before everyday truth starts to add up and the sums don't lie. Now the fallout is ugly. Those who pushed the false story scrambled to rewrite their part, pretending they were confused, pretending they were bystanders instead of architects. They hide behind selective memories, hoping no one notices how quickly they turn their back on the story they swore was fact. But people notice. People always notice. And once the crowd realizes the smear was construction, not conviction, the liars are left exposed, desperate, and diminished. So remember this, chosen ones. Lies are loud but short-lived. Reality is quiet but eternal. Your consistency outlasted their noise. And the moment their lies ran out of breath, your reality kept breathing. That's why they're begging now. Not because you were ever guilty, but because their story couldn't survive the truth of your existence. Number 5, once the judge, now the defendant in their own courtroom. When fear wore the judge's robe, truth put them on trial. Power borrowed from fear always comes back with interest. My dear chosen ones, let's talk about the game they played. The game of judge and jury. For so long, they wrapped themselves in the costume of authority, parading as if every whisper from their mouths was a final verdict etched in stone. They didn't need a courtroom. They didn't need evidence. All they needed was fear, and fear was enough to make people bow. Think about it. They stood at the center of conversations, their words dripping with fake certainty, their heads nodding as if they held divine authority. And what did the crowd do? They believed. They deferred. They treated those accusations as gospel, never stopping to ask for proof. Why? Because fear is a powerful costume. When worn with confidence, it makes liars look like leaders and manipulators look like moral authorities. Chosen ones, how many reputations fell because they dared to play judge without evidence? How many people stepped back from you? Not because of what you did, but because of the illusion they projected. That was the power they craved, the ability to point a finger, label you dangerous, and watch the room move in their direction. It gave them control. It fed their ego, and it made them believe they were untouchable. But here's what they never saw coming. Truth doesn't explode onto the scene with fireworks. It creeps in slowly, quietly, relentlessly. A forgotten kindness. Someone remembers a small inconsistency in their story. A timeline that suddenly doesn't add up. Those little cracks in the wall of lies are like termites. You don't see the damage at first, but over time, the structure begins to rot from the inside. And one day, chosen ones, the robe of authority they wore with such pride is revealed for what it really is, paper thin. And when that moment comes, the courtroom flips. The judges who once sat on high are dragged under the very spotlight they used to condemn you. Every question they dodged now circles back. Every accusation they made now reflects on their motives. Their confident tone becomes evidence of their arrogance. Their authority dissolves, and the people who once believed them start asking, wait a second, what if they weren't protecting us? Could it be that they were only defending themselves? This is where panic sets in, because instead of standing tall and admitting, yes, we were wrong, they scramble for an escape. They beg for someone else to step forward to clear your name so that they don't have to face the consequences of their false judgment. That's why they're chasing a witness, not because they care about you, but because they're desperate to erase their own fingerprints from the crime scene. It's not about justice. It's about preservation. It's about rewriting the script before the truth writes it for them. And chosen ones, here's the beauty of it. The desperation betrays them. It exposes what they feared all along, that their power never came from truth. It came from fear. And fear is a shaky foundation. Once people stop accepting their rulings at face value, their entire empire collapses. They lose more than just reputation. They lose the shield that allowed them to speak without consequence. They lose the illusion that kept them safe. The reversal is brutal and clean. Those who once sat as judges now stand as defendants in the court of public memory. The certainty they wielded so arrogantly is rebranded as manipulation. The voices that once roared accusations are reduced to whispers forced to witness their own undoing. Chosen ones remember this. Truth doesn't need a gavel or a robe. It doesn't storm in with theatrics. It simply waits, stacking small corrections, piling up inconsistencies, and letting endurance do the work. And when a shift comes, it's undeniable. Those who made themselves judges will face judgment. Those who tried to silence you will be silenced by their own exposure. So the next time you hear their desperate begging, don't mistake it for humility. It's not remorse. It's not righteousness. It's the last gasp of people who know they've been unmasked. Fear made them judges. Truth made them defendants. And history will never let them forget which role was real. Number 6, the cowards who hunted. Innocents can't escape exposure. Cowards who hunt the innocent can never rewrite their legacy. Cowardice has no camouflage. It always bleeds through the mask. Chosen ones lean in because this truth is one of the sharpest weapons you'll ever carry. The ones who once came against you aren't just worried about being exposed as liars. They're terrified of being remembered as cowards. And that fear runs deeper than any embarrassment over a rumor falling apart. A lie can sometimes be brushed off, explained away, even excused with claims of confusion. But cowardice, that's permanent. It's a stain that spreads across the memory of who they are. And no amount of excuses can wash it clean. Think about it. When someone attacks a true enemy, at least there's conflict. At least there's resistance. But when someone hunts down the innocent, when they choose the one who never raised a hand, never posed a real threat, they reveal a weakness so deep it cuts through every mask they've ever worn. They didn't fight an opponent. They ambushed someone who wasn't even playing the game. Tell me, chosen ones, where's the bravery in that? Where's the strength? There is none. It's the lowest form of fear pretending to be courage. This is why shame has begun to eat them alive. To outsiders, at first they looked bold, maybe even righteous, standing tall, pointing fingers, stirring up fear around your name. But now that illusion is cracking. The costume of bravery has started to slip, and what's being revealed is far less flattering. They weren't warriors. They were opportunists. They weren't protectors. They were predators of innocence and chosen ones. History has always been cruel to cowards. Why? Because people, strangely enough, can respect a villain who stands firm, even when twisted, even when cruel, more than they can respect a coward who preys on the harmless. A villain at least shows conviction. A coward shows only weakness and desperation to protect their own skin. And that kind of weakness leaves scars that never fade. Chosen ones, let me ask you this. What lingers longer in memory? A rumor or the way someone treated the defenseless? You know the answer. People forget the words, but they don't forget the sight of someone attacking the innocent. They don't forget the energy of it, the ugliness of it, the way it revealed a character that can't be excused. That's what they fear now, that the memory of their cowardice will outlive every excuse they could ever manufacture. They know the truth has already done its work. They know their legacy isn't bravery. It isn't righteousness. It's fragile fear masquerading as strength. And once that mask is ripped off, there's no putting it back on. Dignity lost doesn't return. A coward's stain doesn't fade. It compounds. Every time their name is mentioned in connection to you, the echo will grow louder. They attacked the innocent. That will be their legacy. That will be the permanent mark burned into the record. And chosen ones, this is why they beg. This is why they scramble. This is why they plead for someone else to step forward and soften the story. It's not about clearing your name. It's about shielding theirs. They want someone else to stand up and announce your innocence. Not because they care about your freedom, but because they're desperate to avoid being locked forever in the category of cowardice. But here's the cutting edge of it. The truth doesn't ask permission. It doesn't beg to be believed. It reveals itself quietly and relentlessly until no amount of begging can cover it up. Their cowardice is already on display. Their scramble is already proof. And the harder they beg, the louder it screams. We were never brave. We were never strong. We were afraid. And we hid behind false accusations to make ourselves look powerful. My dear chosen ones, take this in and let it fuel you. Because what they fear most, being remembered as cowards who hunted the innocent, is exactly what they've already become. Their begging won't rewrite it. Their scrambling won't erase it. Once exposed, cowardice is a legacy that lingers, mocking them long after the lies have crumbled. And that chosen ones is the greatest justice of all. They thought they could bury you, but in the end, they only buried their own dignity. The truth has already spoken, and their mask will never return. Number 7, their desperation isn't justice, it's survival mode. The confession they demand isn't justice, it's survival. When a mask slips, panic speaks louder than truth. Chosen ones, listen closely because this moment right here reveals more about your enemies than all their accusations ever did. The confession they are chasing, the plea they're begging for. It was never about you. It was never about justice, fairness, or setting the record straight. It's about them clawing at survival. They're drowning in the very lie they built. And instead of facing it, they're trying to drag someone else in to shout the truth for them, so their own fingerprints stay hidden. On the surface, it might look like they've suddenly developed a conscience. They want the world to know you never try to hurt anyone. They push it as if they're standing up for fairness, as if they're finally recognizing your innocence. But chosen ones dig one layer deeper, and the rod is plain to see. This is not conscience. It's calculation. This is not healing. It's damage control. Let me ask you, why now? Why beg now? After all this time, after all the lies, after all the poison they pumped into people's ears about you, because time has turned the tables, because they know that if the record stands uncorrected, history will remember them not as cautious protectors, but as predators who crushed someone harmless. That kind of label doesn't fade. You can lose popularity and rebuild. You can make mistakes and recover, but being remembered as the ones who attack the innocent, that stain follows you forever. And that chosen ones is what they're running from. You see, people can live with being disliked. They can stomach gossip, even criticism, but they cannot endure being etched into memory as cowards who hunted the blameless. That's not just a reputation hit. That's a legacy destroyed. And legacy terrifies them because legacy outlives excuses. Legacy doesn't bend to apologies whispered too late. Legacy is the story people tell when you're not in the room and the one that gets passed down when you're gone. That's why they beg. That's why they scramble. Not to set you free, chosen ones, but to escape the legacy of their own cruelty. Think about the irony. They want someone else to say, "You never tried to hurt anyone," so they can twist the narrative and paint themselves as misled, as confused, as victims of bad information. They want to look like bystanders, not architects. They're desperate to reposition themselves, to rewrite their role before the script of history locks it in ink. It's survival masquerading as compassion. But you and I know the difference. Justice doesn't care about optics. Justice doesn't play with wording or try to soften the edges. Justice owns the wrong, faces the weight, and restores the truth, no matter how ugly it looks on the guilty. Survival, though survival is selfish, Survival scrambles for cover, spins stories, and rewrites events, so the guilty look less guilty while the innocent remain props in their play. That's what this begging is all about. A frantic, clawing attempt to rewrite their legacy before it hardens. Chosen ones, don't mistake their desperation for redemption. Redemption requires courage. Survival only requires panic. And panic is what you're seeing. Their voices shake, not because they want to protect you, but because they want to protect themselves from being remembered as what they really became. Predators of innocence. That's the truth no one else will say aloud, but you can see it clearly. And here's where the power of being chosen shines through. You were never chained to their lies in the first place. They thought they trapped you in their story, but truth was always your ally. Your endurance, your quiet consistency, your refusal to collapse, that was the real key. Their confession, the one they're so desperate to squeeze out of someone else, isn't for you at all. You're already free. It's for them. They're begging for their own release, begging to soften their legacy, begging to erase the memory of their cruelty. But memory, chosen ones, is merciless. It doesn't forget who struck first. It doesn't forget who attacked without cause. And that's what terrifies them more than anything. Not the lie itself, but the possibility of being forever linked to it. Their scramble is proof. Their desperation is confession. And their fear, more than anything else, tells you the truth. This was never about you. It was always about their survival. So let them beg. Let them scramble. Let them claw at whatever narrative scraps they can find. Because in the end, the chosen ones are not the ones in panic. You stand firm. You endure. You outlast. And when the dust settles, history will see it for what it truly was, an act of survival disguised as justice. And the chosen ones who survived it all. Number 8. The scale of the lie was bigger than anyone imagined. When desperation spills over, the lie exposes its own machinery. A rumor is a spark. A campaign is arson. My dear chosen ones, listen closely because what you're watching right now is not the aftermath of a careless whisper. It's not petty gossip that got out of hand. Their frantic begging proves something far larger, far darker, far more intentional. The lie they built about you wasn't just words tossed in anger. It was an operation, a design, a blueprint crafted to bury you so deeply that no one would ever question their version of reality. And now, as that blueprint burns in their own hands, they scramble to save themselves. Their desperation is the evidence. Think about it. Why would anyone beg so intensely if all they were trying to undo was a small rumor? Why not just admit the mistake and move on? Because this wasn't a mistake. Chosen ones, this was a system, and systems don't collapse quietly. When a single falsehood carries enough weight to fracture relationships, force people to choose sides, and isolate you like you were radioactive, it stops being gossip. It becomes architecture. And when that architecture shakes, the people who built it panic like engineers watching their tower crack in real time. Here's the truth they don't want spoken aloud. Their campaign wasn't meant to bruise you. It was meant to erase you. They didn't just whisper lies in dark corners. They amplified them, spread them, polished them until the fiction looked like fact. Some planted seeds in conversations. Others watered them across social circles. And a few gave nods of credibility from positions of quiet authority. Each layer made the smear look more believable, more communal, more like the truth had been confirmed. This was never about chance. It was construction. It was choreography. And chosen ones, that's why their begging feels so frantic now. They know that if one lever gets pulled, if one person steps forward and tells the world you never try to hurt anyone, the whole machine trembles. All the hidden hands, all the silent participants, all the manufactured echoes, they risk being exposed. A small rumor doesn't trigger that kind of fear. A machine does. Their desperation is the smoke that gives away the fire. Let me ask you, chosen ones, have you ever noticed how they try to disguise this panic? They frame it as making things right.